everybody.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Alex from Archer Travel. I'm joined with none other than Mike Archer himself here. We are going to go over some sales training tips and tricks to help you master the game of sales. Mike, how are you doing?
I am well. So hope you guys had a good week. I hope you learned something about what we were doing with learning about your behavioral styles. Today, we're going to take it to the next step. And we're going to talk about, now that you have this information, how do you put it to work for you? But before we get started on the lesson, Alex, you want to tell them where they can find it?
Absolutely. So here we are on the Travel Cafe. So if you look here on the home page, you're going to go down on the left-hand side, click on the Training Hub. I'm going to click that. And we want to get you started off quick here. We want to get you up to pace. So you click on the Quick Start section here, the drop-down window, and you go down to the Sales Training Certification Program. Click that. And now it's going to take you to this page. It's going to give you an intro on Mike himself. You got a bio here. You got a checklist for the certification. And right here, you can click to download the sales training PDF. And then importantly, right here, watch the certification videos here. So we click that, and that's going to pop open this playlist here. You got a huge playlist loaded to the brim with all the lessons you can watch on your free time. You miss one, don't worry, we got you here. Loads and loads of information and study material. And once you finish all the trainings, you can email Mike for the exam. And right here, you have Mike's contact info. You got his email, mike@archertravel.com. And again, that's mike@archertravel.com, and his cell phone number right here as well if you want to reach out to him personally. But yeah, that is how you find all the material here. And I'll let Mike take it away. Mike?
Okay. All right, guys, here we go. So we're in lesson 3, and we're talking about the behavioral style clues and versatility and backup behavior. So this continues to go along with Jose's Wednesday training of meeting and greeting and getting to know your client. Now, one of the things that I want to stress on this is what we're talking about is these are life skills. And the particular skills that we're going to talk about today, these are really, really good for conflict resolution, whether you're in a selling situation, whether you're in a personal situation, whether you're in some sort of a business situation. This is all good for conflict resolution when stuff starts to go south on you. So what do we do with the information that we learned last week? Well, everybody should be on page 12. So the first thing we want to talk about is, how do you get on the same page with your client? And the first way is called versatility. And look at the very first statement under lesson 3. Am I willing to temporarily, you notice I capitalize that, am I willing to temporarily change my behavior to accommodate the other person? And all that means is, can you take what's in your style, and after you've identified the style that the other person or people that you're dealing with is, can you modify your behavior to accommodate them, to make them feel more comfortable during that situation? Remember, this is temporary. All right. You're in the process of moving your client closer to a sale, and the more you can do that, the easier it's going to be. And again, remember, this only works if you're face-to-face with people, or you're on a Zoom call or a telephone call, but you're doing this personally, you're not doing it digitally. None of the stuff that I'm talking to you about works at all if all you do is try to sell digitally through TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, websites, jot forms, whatever it is that you're doing digitally does not work with what we're talking about. All right. So go down to the third paragraph, and Underneath that, you'll see a little chart. And I call this the task teeter-totter. And the task at hand is your tension and their tension. The trick is to balance it. And we're going to talk about what those telling tensions are next week when we start talking about the process of selling. All right. Versatility is managing so both of you have the ability to talk, your tensions stay low, everything is hunky-dory, everything's going smooth. All right. So there are two parts to this. The first part is how to be versatile, and the second part is where that versatility can be applied. All right. So the first one is let's talk about how to be versatile. All right. Some of the elements, and they're all right here. They're at the bottom of page 12. Okay. So is your physical appearance appropriate for the setting? And I'll give you an example. When I was in yearbook sales, I usually would walk in dressed business casually. Those of you that have been in the business world, you know what I'm talking about. I had on a pair of loafers, khaki slacks, a golf t-shirt like this. And that's what I did, because if I was overdressed in a shirt and a tie, I made the kids uncomfortable. They didn't know what to do with me. In fact, one day I was walking down the hall in a coat and tie because I was getting ready to meet an administrator, and it was passing period. So I'm walking down the hall, and kids are looking at me funny, and they're getting out of my, it's kind of like parting the Red Sea. And finally, one kid comes up to me and he goes, "Are you the narc?" And I said, "No, I'm just the yearbook guy. I'm going to see your principal." And they laughed, and they went on their way. So it was kind of funny, but it illustrates the point. You need to be appropriately dressed. So if you know that you're going into a business situation where people are going to be a little bit more formally dressed, don't go in in cutoff jeans and a t-shirt. It's not going to work. You get the point. Okay, so you're well groomed, properly dressed as appropriate for your viewer. The second one is your ability to communicate verbally, good grammar, diction, and pacing. So if you're a faster paced person and you start identifying as somebody who is not very assertive, so they're a little bit more slower paced, all you got to do is just slow yourself down. That's part of being versatile. It's not something, it's not major changes here. It's little things. It's just little things like slowing yourself down. Competence and compatibility. A competence that shows you're well versed in your subject matter in order others may use. You can read this. When people are looking to do business, especially in job interviews, and that's essentially what you're doing, is you're going on a job interview. They look for two things. They look for competence and they look for compatibility. All right. So when you walk in, they are assuming you're competent. So now what they're looking for is, are you compatible with their goals, their ideas, what they want to get accomplished? So just remember those two C's: competence and compatibility. All right. The other thing is giving verbal and nonverbal feedback as appropriate for the situation. And we're going to talk about feedback next week. So you're going to see how all of this fits. This is kind of, the course is kind of frustrating for me because we're taking a whole bunch of parts and breaking them down individually. What the goal is that you see the overall process when we're all done. And so this is a little frustrating, and I hope that frustration doesn't come through to you guys. But it's important that you understand each section of the process. And then finally, the facial expression and the eye contact. So let's say, for example, that you're a driver or an expressive and you have some pretty good eye contact, and you know, or you've identified that you are going in with, and you're going to be meeting with an amiable or an analytical. All you need to do is ease up on your eye contact, and you will know it right away. If you've got a really strong eye contact, and it's to the point where some people's eye contact is so strong, it makes other people not very comfortable. Be aware of that. These are just the things to be aware of so that you can understand how you can modify what you're doing to go along with that. So let's take a look at those. And they're over on the right side of page 12. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because you can see all the characteristics right here. But as an analytical, so I want you to look at all of these okay, for example, I'm an amiable. I want to look at all of these others as what can I do to change my behavior to accommodate them. All right. So as an amiable, I've got no problem with an easy eye contact for an analytical. Be prepared. Sometimes I have a tendency to not be as accurate as I want. So with an analytical, I've got to make sure I've got all my ducks in a row. An analytical is going to want evidence. They're going to want proof. And in lesson 6, I'm going to show you how you give them that proof. You need to be precise with an analytical. All right. Stick to the point, no storytelling. And just keep in mind, they're going to make a slow decision. And what you want to reinforce with them that no matter what decision they make, that decision is correct. All right. So that's how you can be versatile with an analytical. So with an amiable, again, easy eye contact, they're slower paced. With an amiable, make sure you minimize the risk with them. All right. You got to be patient, especially you drivers and expressives. You got to be patient with an amiable. Provide assurances for them. Remember, they are the relationship people. They want to make sure that they're going to be taken care of. So if you struggle with that, this is one of the areas where you can be versatile. It says, hey, I got you covered. We're going to walk through this together, and I'm going to take really good care of you. Again, slow decision making, and you want to develop the relationship. Now, developing the relationship, this is where you analyticals and drivers can really work on your versatility, is because I know that you guys are facts and data. You're more oriented to facts and data than you are to relationships. So this is going to be an important area where you can become more versatile. All right, expressives. With an expressive, you want to reinforce their opinions because they think they're always right, even when they're not, but they think they are. So you want to reinforce their opinions, but I'm going to show you how you can do that and still maintain your own integrity, because there is a difference, right? And so it has to do with feedback and how you express yourselves to them. And we're going to get into that feedback next week, is to how do you manage a relationship when they're moving away from you? How can you bring them back into the relationship? Avoid arguments with expressives, because again, you're never going to win. You're just not going to win. Motivate them with stories, especially if you can name drop, because they love to be noticed. And if you want to, and if you know somebody that they don't know, and it's somebody big, let them know that. Okay. Cite prominent people. They are impressed by emotional power, physical power, personal power. They're impressed by people of influence. All right. Make sure with an expressive that you settle all final details. Now, typically this doesn't happen during the sale, because remember, they're global thinkers. They're not facts and data people. So after you've got them to commit to them, this is where you can get your versatility, is make sure that they've got all their travel documents, make sure they've got all their shots if they need them, make sure that they've got all their travel insurance, make sure that they've got all the documentation and the paperwork and the details. You're going to have to help them with this through the entire process. And again, with an expressive, you focus on the big picture. And then with drivers, they've got strong eye contact. So if you want to get on the same page quickly with a driver, especially you left of the line people, you want to make sure that you step up your eye contact a little bit. You're simple and direct with them. So an expressive, if you like telling stories, you want to try to avoid those. All right. Don't waste their time. They are all about efficiency. And again, you want to use facts and data with them. Especially you want to stay on task. You don't want to wander down rabbit holes or by telling stories or experiences or anything like that. Again, they're fast decision makers. And when you are making your presentations, which we'll get into again in lesson 6 or 7 and 8, you want to show them their options. That's the key. Okay, so all of this that I've just shown you is on page 12. That's the how to be versatile. Now I want you to slide over to page 13, and this is where you can be versatile, because this is on the test and there is a difference, and it's very different. So where you can be versatile are in these areas: what you support, your use, how you use your time, and in your decision making. I want you to go through this. This is very, very key, but there's a couple of them that are more critical than others. And I've got them underlined here, and I want you to underline them. Number one, with an analytical, I want you to reinforce in them that the decision is correct. And typically analyticals do not like to be touched. Beyond a perfunctory handshake, if you are a hugger, this is where you really need to be versatile. Don't hug them because they will not appreciate that. In fact, another yearbook store I have, I was walking down a hall with a yearbook advisor. We were going back to her room, and we were chatting, and I went up and we were walking side by side, and I put my arm around her to give her a little squeeze, and she ducked under my arm, did a whole 360, and took 2 steps back. This really happened. So, and I'm going, oh man, did I blow this? So I immediately turned around and I said, I am so sorry. That was inappropriate. I'm sorry I did that. Are you okay? Can I do anything? And she says, no, I just don't like to be touched. I says, I got it. So we walked down the hall, and now instead of being right next to her, I'm a foot away from her. And we got along fine after that. But I threw myself under the bus because I knew immediately what I did was wrong. I didn't recognize it. I didn't use my versatility. Okay, go over to driver on what to support. You want to show the driver options. And again, because they're above the line people, they are not relationship oriented. Don't touch them. A handshake. I even went so far one time. I went to shake a guy's hand, and he just handed me. He had his business card in his hand, and he just handed me his business card so he didn't have to touch my hand. So that's how extreme this can get. So just be prepared for it and recognize it for what it is. It's how that person likes to be treated. Use of time. There's nothing really, really clear in here. I mean, that's highlighted, but just be sensitive to the time issue. All right. Right of the line people are fast paced. Left of the line people are slower paced. As long as you're aware of that, you should be just fine. So on the decision-making process, couple of things. On the amiable, I want you to underline develop the relationship. You want to get business from an amiable person, you tell them how much you're going to take care of them, and then go about and demonstrate that. With an expressive, I want you to underline focus on the big picture. All right. You get down into the weeds with details with these guys if you're an analytical or a driver, and you're going to lose them. All right. And then driver, let them make the decision. One of the hardest sales I ever made. And those of you that have never been in sales before, when you ask somebody to buy something, you have to shut up. You just shut up. Ask them, and then you have to be quiet because the first person that speaks loses. And I mean loses in that the decision, well, I'm sitting in a principal's office. We're talking about the contract, and I've got it in front of me, and he likes everything that he's heard. The price is good, the service is good. And I go, so I just put the contract and the pen down in front of him, and I go, what do you think? And I shut up. And it was the longest 15 seconds of my life. It was dead silent. He was in his chair. He turned around, looked out the window, and I wasn't about to say anything. After about, I swear it was 5 minutes, but it couldn't have been more than 15 or 20 seconds. But silence has a way of expanding itself. Those of you that have experienced it know what I'm talking about. But finally, after about 15 seconds, he turns around and he goes, let's go. Signs the contract. I tear off the bottom copy, give it to him, shake his hand, and I'm out the door. And I had that school for 15 years. So this is how you can be versatile. This is how you learn what to do in different situations where you can modify your behavior to accommodate the needs of the other people. All right. So let's go now. So what do we do now? Go to page 14. So what happens when things start to go south on you and a lot of stress enters into the relationship? This is called backup behavior. And it's what we all do when we get under stress. All right. It's called, and you've all heard it, it's called the flight or fight syndrome. And it's how we manage our stress levels in ourselves and in other people. All right, so let's talk about that. So up over on page 15, you can read. Okay, let's go through this. First of all, it confirms the home-based style. It's an exaggeration of that style. So the trick is you want to recognize the stress, non-judgmentally seek the cause, and then reduce the tension. So something happened, like walking down the hallway with that advisor. It was, I immediately recognized why I caused the stress, and I knew what the cause was. So I just turned around and I reduced the tension by apologizing and saying, can we move forward? So it just confirms your home-based style. So the fight or flight syndrome, typically left of the line people will flee. They want to get away from the situation. We're going to go through how they do that in a second. The right of the line people, the drivers and the expressives, they're going to want to fight. And there's different ways of doing that. And we're going to go through all of them. All right. So amiables. Amiables are the hardest to recognize when they're going under stress, because remember, they're relationship people. They don't want to hurt your feelings. So they internalize everything. And here's how they do it. The voice in the face just goes flat. It's just non-existent. The eye contact is broken. Posture change. They will go back and they will compact. And a lot of times they'll just start looking down because they don't want to make eye contact with you. They don't want to do anything that they think will upset you. So they withdraw internally. So when you keep talking and they're not responding, you think they are agreeing, and I've seen this happen. You think they're agreeing with you when in fact they are becoming under a lot more stress that is going to shut them down, and they will just shut down. And those of you that have been in that situation, you've seen it happen. Analyticals, again, the voice in the face goes flat. Broken eye contact. Now, on an analytical, you can tell they're under stress because their posture change is going to go. They're going to go back. You can't see all of me, but they're going to go back, and a lot of times they'll cross their legs. So what have they done? They put a wall up, arm and the crossed legs, and backing up. They have put a wall up between the two of you to protect themselves. And so that's how they withdraw. And if it gets serious enough, they will withdraw physically. They'll get up and leave the room. or they'll withdraw emotionally by putting up that barrier of the big arm and the big leg. So there, those, if you see a posture change, by the way, if you see posture changes in anybody, that's a good indication that they're under some stress. So just pay attention to the posture change and how that affects what's going on in the conversation. Drivers, their voices are going to get a lot louder. Their eye contact is really strong because their posture change is going to come up and forward, and they're going to start doing this to you and start doing this and start doing this. It's the take charge attitude. When a driver's under stress, they already like to be in control, but it's going to get exaggerated here. And then in the expressives, they're more animated. Their voice gets louder. Their faces, you can see the anger or the distress or whatever. You can see it in their faces. Again, their eye contact. Their posture change on an expressive, posture change is going to come forward, and they're gonna do one of these. You ever seen somebody come up and their arms spread out across the desk? That's an expressive that's under stress, and they'll confront you physically, verbally. I mean, expressives, they're going to attack physically, verbally, emotionally. That's what they're going to do. That's how they're going to get their own stress back under control. So again, these are exaggerations of their home base style. Now, what happens if they can't get that emotion, that stress under emotion? This is called a Z out. And the reason is this because the behavior, your behavior to get under stress follows a Z pattern, no matter which quadrant you start from. So you start at the home base style. So for example, let's take me as an amiable. So my Z, if I'm under stress and I cannot get my stress under control, I'll go to attack mode. I've got to do something to get my stress under control. So I'm going to go into attack mode. Emotionally, I'm not a fighter, so I'll do it emotionally or verbally. If that doesn't work, and I'm going, well, crap, that's not working, I'm just going to leave. I'll just get up and leave. I withdraw physically. That's what I do, and I recognize this in myself. There have been times when I could not get my stress under control until I migrated to the analytical pattern. And without exception, I grab my car keys and I go. I go someplace. Typically, it's Baskin Robbins and get some ice cream. But I will get out of the situation until I feel better. I feel good enough where I can come home. And if that doesn't work, then this very seldom happens for me. But if I couldn't get it under control the other way, I will go into driver mode and I'll just take charge. I said, okay, that's it. I'm tired of dealing with this. This is the way we're going to do it. And hopefully by the time you get to the fourth part of the Z, something's happening and you've got your stress under control. So take a look at your own home-based style. By the way, this is also a confirmation that you are in the correct home-based style. So if you look at this Z pattern and it kind of doesn't fit you, especially if you're close, like -1s or +1s, or if you're into the 1s or the 2s, you may want to re-look at your behavioral profile and see if maybe you can switch a couple of things that would get you into the right pattern. It's not critical, but it's something to take a look at. So it's, again, we want to resolve the behavior. So look up at the top, recognize the behavior non-judgmentally, seek the cause of the tension, and then reduce the tension to those tolerable levels. And you want to avoid a Z out behavior pattern like the plague, because that's when the relationships go south. And this happens, again, this is not just a selling situation. This happens all the time in your personal lives, in your business lives. It's not just your selling life. So again, if you can understand what's going on in these pages, you can understand it, and then you can figure out how to deal with it using all the stuff you've learned in the last 2 weeks. So that's kind of it for today. So Alex, during the lesson, did anybody have any questions that pop up?
I'm not seeing any, but I see a lot of people that were excited to catch up on the lessons. I see people thanking you for going through everything. But yeah, I mean, I'll just ask again if there's any existing questions for Mike. We'd love to hear them. If not, you can always reach Mike directly. Let's see here. His email is mike@archertravel.com. Again, that's mike@archertravel.com. And to access all of the trainings, you'll go through the Travel Cafe Trainings Hub, Quick Start, training certification free, and you can watch his videos there and email him directly for the exam.
Oh,
But
one thing I forgot to mention, Alex, is, and I'm sure that somebody will probably think of this as a question later on. When you're in your Z out behavior, there's no set time that you spend in any one quadrant. Like, for example, I spend a lot of time in my own home-based style, a lot. But when I finally do migrate, I usually blow right through the expressive, where I usually blow right through the attack phase and go to the withdrawal phase, and I just get out of there. And it could take me a couple of hours to calm down, to get back into my comfort zone of being an amiable. So there's no set time in any one of these. It's just it's basically, it's how well do you know yourself when you get into these situations. So next week, if you want to get ahead of the game, you can start leading into chapter 4. Because now we're actually going to start getting into, we're still part of the relationship. We haven't gone into the sales process yet. We're still working next week on establishing the relationships, but now we're going to take it one step farther. And how and what kinds of questions do you use to get to where you want to go? And we're going to talk about all of that starting in the selling process next week. So if there's aren't any other questions, Alex, we'll see everybody next week.
Awesome. Mike, thank you so much again for taking the time to spend with us to go over your really invaluable knowledge about sales. And I just want to say this for the chat, that as a guy who was formerly in car sales, everything he is saying is gold. I'm not exaggerating. I've heard from veterans in the sales game of the whoever talks first loses. That is so true. So Mike absolutely knows his stuff. All of this is pure gold. Take some time to watch the lessons and go through the content. It's some really good stuff. Mike, thank you so much for spending this time with us. And
it's my pleasure, Alex. Thanks for the kind words. I'll see everybody next week.
Absolutely. Bye. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.